May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be ever pleasing in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Throughout my time here on earth, which hasn't been long, one thing I've been a part of a lot is either groups or team-like situations. And it's always fascinating to me how these shake out and how the leadership structures form in these different ways we form groups. I mean, one example I often use is when you're putting on a theatrical production. When you're doing a show, there is a group, and the goal is to put on a show, and you know who's in charge, the director is in charge. But a good director knows they don't know everything. So they rely on the team under them to help them come up with the best vision possible for that show. They rely on the actors to bring a new comedic take on a line. They rely on the set designers to bring in this new color. They know that some creativity and input from the team helps to make the whole thing better. They know to listen to the people under them. It's a little more collaborative. And then you compare that with something like a choir. In a choir, there is no suggestions from the choir about how to sing. There is no suggestion from the choir about which songs are in the program. There are no suggestions in the choir about maybe we should sing faster here or slower there. Because the conductor of the choir is in full control of every aspect of the performance. It's the choir director's group. You're just singing it. And there were plenty of times I would go to my choir director, Dr. Bray, and say, could we do this song? Could we do this peppier song? Could we do this song that doesn't sound like a German dirge? And the answer was always no. It was his choir. He got to pick the program. He got to pick what style we were singing. He got to pick what we would learn. Compared to the theater, a choir group is much more hierarchical, much more top-down. Finally, if we're sticking with the college theme and things I did here, the other dreaded group I was a part of was when your professor would say, you're in a group now. You have to do this assignment together, the four of you. Go. You just have to pull it together. And the problem is there's no one really in charge. You had to trust one another to get something done. Sometimes someone would step up and say, you do this, you do this, you do that. But other times you'd just be sitting there going, kind of feeling around in the dark till you figured out how you're going to pull off this task. It's what I like to call chaotic democracy. Because everyone has a say in what you're going to do in this group project, but we all really don't know what we're doing. I bring up these different group types because of our second reading for the day. I love Paul. And this is a letter by Paul written to the church in Corinth, thus Corinthians. And we know this is actually written by Paul, unlike some of the other letters from Paul who were just students or scholars of Paul. This one is Paul. And we know it's Paul because one of the biggest giveaways for reading a Pauline letter is to notice that it's sassy. Paul is sassy. He gets angry, and he knows how to throw shade and to subtly insult people while guiding them to the right path. He's a rhetorical master, really, and his letters are some of the best examples of hidden compliments, of buttering people up and also tearing them down at the same time. He's very good at persuasive technique, and he gets someone to come to his side of the argument pretty easily. And in this reading this morning, boy, do we get a dose of sass from Paul. Because Paul recounts how he's heard that there's quarreling and there's fighting among the church in Corinth. Can you imagine people in church fighting? That would never happen. But I do think it's good we hear this. Because people often want to romanticize the early church. They want to make it seem like everyone knew exactly what they were doing and exactly how this mission of God was going to turn out. They were just sitting there singing Kumbaya together and the Holy Spirit was moving. But that wasn't exactly the case. There was fighting and there was disagreement and there was theological debate. It was quite frankly a hotbed of dysfunction. But they got through it. So to the church at Corinth at this time, they're going through a drama because some people think they're better than others because of who baptized them. They're bragging and boasting. I was baptized by Jesus, so I belong to Christ. I was baptized by Apollos. I was baptized by insert name here. And Paul basically responds, are you crazy? Have you thought about what you're saying? We are all baptized into Christ, and last I checked, Christ has not been cut up or divided. Christ hasn't been broken up into these factions. Remember who unites you. And Paul goes further, I give thanks that I baptize none of you. That's a burn right there. Paul does list the 3 people he did baptize, just a disclaimer. But he does throw a bit of shade and says, look, it's not about what group you belong to. It's not about who baptized you, but instead about who you were baptized into. And that is into Christ and into Christ's death and resurrection. If I had to posit a theory about why the early church struggled, I think it's because they were functioning like they were in a group project. Jesus gave them the assignment, Jesus said, go do this, and then it disappeared. And suddenly they're all there going, well, we know what we're supposed to do, but how do we do it? And as we know, because most of us have been in these group projects, it's never comfortable. There can be struggle and pain and difficulty and arguments in the group because no one is fully in charge, and everyone does bring gifts to the table. Everyone has skills, but inevitably there will be disagreement as we try and figure out how to work together. Yet this is where the early church finds itself. And they look to people like Paul or the other apostles or anyone else in leadership to come in and tell them what to do. To be the director of the choir and say, this is exactly how we're going to do it, and this is why. This is the definitive way. I know what God meant. But even Paul, in his guidance and his admonishment of the Corinthians, doesn't do that. He does tell them the obvious problem. He's able to look at them and go, yeah, this is where the issue is. But he goes on again to point them to God, to the cross, to Jesus' life-saving act, to remind them that they're all saved by grace, and that we're all bound up in that same level and in that same way, that we're all in this together. And when I think about the church today, when I think about the early church, many people, I think they think that we've moved past the group project structure of the church. Most people would think, that we're in a theater model. The pastor is in charge, and they take suggestions from the congregation and the council, and help the congregation hone its skills and use the gifts so that we come out with the best church we can be. And I think that has been the model for a while in the church, or at least the expected model of how we function. But too often, I think it falls into the choir director model instead. It may start as a theater director and the idea that we're all in this together, but the pastor's the one kind of steering the ship. But it's often easy to fall into absolutes and to fall into just doing whatever the pastor says. Because we want someone in charge. We want someone to tell us what's right and wrong and to make it very clear as to what the path forward is. I would like to let you in on a secret. I, as the pastor, do not always have the answer, and I do not always know how to react in a situation or what to do. As much as we don't want to hear it, the church, in fact, probably works best as a group project. A model where everyone's at the table. Everyone has buy-in, and everyone's working together to support this mission and to love each other. We're not divided into groups of actors and set designers and techies, but everyone working together on one vision of the church. The pastor is certainly part of that group, and the pastor can be the one doling out the assignments and organizing and make sure everything happens. The pastor can guide the group. But remember, the pastor is human too. The pastor is a sinner 2, I need grace just as much as the rest of you. Clergy, pastors, and deacons are not just magical machines who know everything. We are figuring this out with you. And the beauty of having that group project is everyone has to support everyone else. Everyone at the table has a part to play, they have a piece to finish, they are bought into making sure this happens. Everyone is involved. No one can just lean out of it. No, when someone is having a problem, someone is having a struggle, the beauty is everyone is still at the table to support them in that as well. But we have to fight the tendency to just let one person make all the decisions. We have to fight the tendency to just do what we're told, but instead to discuss what we're doing and delve into why we're doing what we're doing. I know personally I had a tendency to overfunction and overplan and make ideas. And I'm trying to step back from that. And I'm doing better. The group project is a messy model. Just like in the early church, and there was infighting, there will be drama wherever humans are gathered together. We will always have disagreement, no matter if it's a top-down choir director model or it's a group project model. But we do remember that we're united by a common mission and a common call. We all know Christ has brought us to this place and to this table to show God's love in the world. We are all in this group project together, each and every one of us. So let's get to work. Amen.